Welcome to Did the Prophets Make a Profit? I'm Rustavora Wallen with my brilliant nephew, Dr. Benjamin Oppenheimer. Together, we explore Torah, entrepreneurship, ethics, and the meaning of true gain. Because profit is not only what we make, but what we make of our lives.
Business,
Finance. So
entrepreneurial.
it's business entrepreneurship. It's anything that has to do with anyone that works at a company. And this really, to me, is all about your clients. And this could be a value add.
So guess what? Yesterday, I read almost the rest of a book that I started many months ago. And you should be receiving it any hour now if you haven't already received it there on Goodrich. It's called Thou Shall Prosper. And it's a Torah mindset from a very cool rabbi who's a Brown, not Brown, is it? A Brown graduate who's highly educated, but who's also a Rav, who his whole, when he was asked to be a rabbi of the very famous congregation called Pacific Jewish Center, and I think it's like Marina Del Rey or something, he didn't want an income from them. He said, it was maybe too modest at that point, but he didn't want to be beholden to the shul. He wanted him and his wife to be friends and almost peers. And he was a real estate broker. And he developed that, and he had wins and he had losses, and he learned things and developed this thing. He lives in Mercer Island, which is, you know where that is, in Washington State, a very
Right.
small private place. He says, I don't have a waterfront property. That might be something because only 500 people can have it. But it's something to continue to aspire to. This guy, he has these 10 commandments of being, let's say, wealthy, of being prosperous in a Torah way. And I thought it was so
Perfect start.
cool. I thought it was
Perfect.
so cool. But if you will allow me, I'd like to show you a document. I guess you probably didn't see because wasn't one of the main.
I was thinking that you were just doing the perfect preamble to the first episode right there.
Okay, okay. So we could talk about that after maybe you've
Yes.
looked at the book. You can even skim it. I'm not asking you to read it. I know you're a busy man.
Did you read it?
Yes, I did. I have
Let's
like
talk
30
about
pages.
that. Let's start with what's his name?
His name is Daniel Lapin.
Let's start with Daniel Lapin, not a prophet, but someone that is on the same track as we are, right?
So would you like me to tell you a little bit about the book?
I'd like you to tell me and all the listeners a little bit about the book.
Okay, I'll tell you and the listeners a lot about the book. So
Sure.
he's an ethical um he's a speaker on Torah and business ethics and spirituality, and he says that making money is a moral and a spiritual activity when it's done properly, when it's done with integrity and following the laws of the Torah. And so he made up commandments. They're not related to the Ten Commandments, but he explains how the Ten Commandments are the first 10 are between you and God. I am God. Thou shalt not have any other gods before me. Thou shalt not make any graven image, no idolatry, no. And then it moves to the bottom one is honor your parents. And then the next column, there are two tablets. On the other side, it starts with man and man, but they all parallel one another. It's fascinating.
Okay. Okay.
So these are his 10 commandments, morality of business. So he says, if you think that business is inherently illicit or amoral, or
Right.
maybe some of the psychological imprinting that I feel that certain things were done that were not comfortable for me morally and ethically and according to my comfort level. So I have to rid of that idea because the Torah says wealth is a gift from God. And apparently, one of the first words in the Torah is the gold, that it's called good, that
Mm.
we should perceive it as not as a negative thing, but it's a good thing. And you can do more good if you have more money.
Let's let's kind of start around there then, right?
So the idea of morally reprehensible money making gets in the way of a person's ability to feel free to make money.
Interesting. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is
A psychological glitch.
I'm gonna talk from a purely um non-religious standpoint as we discuss,
Okay.
and you're going to note some of these prophets, this
Any of these religious ideas.
clearly amazing man, and we can start with his book, and we'll tag him somehow, so other people can buy his
Yeah.
book, and if
Yeah.
we're lucky, maybe he'll want to come on one time
That would
and
be
join us.
cool.
But here's the way that I would put this, right? So um, if you're a good and religious person, you care about society, you care about earning to be able to give, to be able to support your family,
Hmm.
and you also
Exactly.
care about not being a Ponzi schemer, not being
Not
a
doing anything in a
fraud.
bad way. And
Right.
unfortunately, Jews and non-Jews, of course, have done this. The Madoff thing was horrible.
That's what I'm thinking. So as
Madoff
I'm
made off with a ton of money from a lot of nice people. And it was all tzedakah money. A lot of it was charitable funds. I know people who were ripped off then.
let's 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 digest this a little bit, and that'll be our 30 minutes today. Um, when you decide to go into business, your company should have a foundation of something that you believe in, and it has to be a really important belief. Maybe uh, what we could call the Torah of your business.
My company's name, Torah Therapeutics, that I be able to give people benefit emotionally or socially or physically or psychologically from whatever I do, whether it's talking to them or listening to them, teaching them, making workshops for them, making
Sure.
songs with them, affirmations, budgets, whatever, worksheets. That
So
is my mission.
you would be the like the penultimate uh, exemplar
Thank you.
of what we're trying to do here,
Just second
which
last, you mean, or shall I be the last? The ultimate.
the ultimate. No, the number one. But
Thank you.
here's the idea. You recognized it immediately, and that's where you are.
I have
And
such a mission. You can't imagine. I'm constantly in the midst of it, processing it all the time. It's a continuous thing.
sure. I'll ask you questions about it, and I'll start to make some general kind of statements or ideas surrounding what my thoughts are, and then we'll go back and forth, 5 minutes at a time, so that we'll get a full idea out here for the listeners. So, in business in general, generally speaking, taking it up to the grand level, the highest level, we say, um, okay, what is the mission? What is the vision? And what are the core values of this business? And so those are actually three separate things. And the mission is known as a mission statement. A lot of companies have mission statements. Most entrepreneurs don't really think about this before they get started. You see,
Because
they go to
it's already, it's kind of activated in their mind.
well, they go to school and they say, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer,
So they just
I'm
go
a
into that position
and they say, Hi, I'm a doctor. And they don't really know exactly what their goals are. So the mission statement is a goal terminology, okay? And then that's the guiding
it's
light. And
prefabbed, it's not private, it's not individualized.
if you're very smart and savvy in business, and it's very hard when you're starting out. to know, who am I? What do I stand for? Why do I exist?
People
What
thought I
are
was nuts. I knew what I wanted 30 plus years ago when I started becoming a therapist. And people thought I was crazy bringing Torah into therapy.
therapy,
Now
right?
people are running after it. Everybody's opening another thing and pulling out another shingle.
Let me take you through these three steps, and then I want all of the feedback. Do you have a pen and paper there to take notes for yourself so that you can?
I did.
Okay. So let me take you through my thinking process here on how this relates to entrepreneurship or even just any formulation in business. So the first would be understanding what your goals are. Mission and goals are equivalent. Okay. And we pull from any areas of our life. And that's why it's so important for you to be involved in this conversation. What areas of our life are critically important for us to be able to feel good, like we've achieved a goal? Generally speaking, if you run a business, you have, and we'll start with corporate level because it's easy to understand. The person that founds the business, the founder of the business, they have something called a vision, and I'll get to that in a second. But they may not have a mission. And so what they do is they'll go to a um, investors, and the investors will fund this opportunity. And out of that, they'll develop essentially the mission of the company, then the vision of the entrepreneur, and then the core values of the company in order to achieve those goals.
But if you're
And
a
then there's,
one man show, you need to do both of those in one fell swoop.
yes. And so if we're going to take it to most of the listeners that are going to be listening here, because
Small
a lot
business
of other people,
owners,
they, they,
entrepreneurs.
they generally understand that that's the thing, but sometimes it just happens over time and you kind of like, you don't think about it until you need to think about it. And when you need to think about it, that's all these other levels like um, how does the 500th employee understand what it is that we're trying to achieve as a company? Okay. So getting back to the conversation, mission equals goals. What are the goals? And it's usually described as a mission statement, which could be a phrase, it could be a number of different sentences put together, but it should be quite refined. And there is countless books and
Yes.
ideas on that. So, what are the goals? And you'll relate that to something in a second from the scripture, I'm sure. And then the second thing are, what is the vision? And the oper that's the operation of the CEO, okay, of the company.
Right.
Um, in order to achieve these goals, this is the vision. We're going to do these things, and this is what we believe in as a big circle around everything. And the reason why we believe in that is supported by what we call in business core values.
Mhm.
And these core values are what you have referred to um, uh, as the commandments. So there
Or
are,
these ones that he's saying, these business
or these
commandments.
business things. And so if we're talking, and then this is where you need to help me here, but um, the Ten Commandments, and then there's others, as you've said, which I didn't really know about the parallels and all of that, so you can help me there. But those Ten Commandments, it goes backwards too. It relates to so that's the values, the values of company.
Basic,
So
let's just say Judeo-Christian values, not to steal, not to murder, not to commit adultery,
sure,
not to
sure.
covet, not to,
Yeah,
those
and
things
that's
are
a
generic,
lifestyle.
very generic.
Well, we can call it generic, or we could call it the most important things that have ever been described for life to
Fine, but they
exist.
don't delineate the detail. They will say that you're not allowed to covet. So there's a business element there. We shouldn't want someone else's stuff. Then,
I would argue the opposite actually, incidentally, because the values, I suppose you're right, and also there's opportunity to explore it as the opposite, but the values of a company are what they relate to the human beings that participate in operating the company to assist in the
yes, you
vision
want them to
and
have
understand
these
the mission.
basic core values
Yeah.
themselves,
Are you like us? Are you like us?
but
Do you
but
feel like you're like
if it's
us?
an observant company that tries to follow Torah and halacha, Jewish law, so there are very specific things about weights and measures, about paying people on time and not holding them up. If they're a day wage, if they're an hourly wage, if they're a salaried wage, everybody, you need to know these laws. So it's almost impossible with the Ten Commandments to really do. You've got the general sense of what moral business is like.
Yeah, and
But,
so this is where you need to correct me because I was wrong by saying the Ten Commandments, but
well,
you
there's
would say
613.
613, 13, right?
Correct.
613. So
Yes.
there's 613, and the parallel to business is core values, okay? And so every business, I think, has to develop not 613,
But
but
whatever their.
four, no, 4 to 5. Okay, so here's my advice from a
Mhm,
business.
mhm.
You have to certainly you will say if we want to be an honorable business and be successful, and we're going to get into all of this on later podcasts, but um, the every business, and how about this, just and then I'll let you riff for a little bit. 613 ideals of a human being would never fly in a business.
Of
You can
course.
have 4 or 5.
Of course, I get it.
And so that's what you get to be able to teach and train on. And the refinement has to be so clear that there's no one that couldn't possibly remember in your company
Those
the
four values, those four.
3, 4, 5. I mean, maybe 6, but after 6, you're done. So in business, in modern business, in America, I guess maybe in New York or in Western Europe, but I think in America is fair, or in Western society, I think would be fair because if we talk about publicly traded companies on the Nasdaq or on the S&P 500, or I'm sorry, the Dow, the 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 clarity that they have is refined by business philosophers that understand that we need to create a set of values that every single human being that joins our religion, our business religion, has agreement on,
Our
and
culture, our
our
culture, our business
create
culture.
creates the culture. Yes, it's the base of the culture. So do you believe that you should care about your client in one way or another? This is a generic version of what somebody might say, like I heard one core value that was interesting. It was like eat the stinky cheese, right? And that
Mhm.
was about trying something new, right? And so their company was a cheese company. And so what they did was they created
They made
something
it
that
into a cute, fun way to remember what are we doing? What is our main thing that we're thinking
if
about?
you don't want to try the stinkiest cheese that we have to offer, then you may not fit in our culture. So, yes, it's a defining factor of what happens in the culture. And we love these, right? And so, the more creative and crafty you can be about refining your core values, this puts everything to the very highest level. So, this is the definition of what it means to really truly be an entrepreneur with any amount of interest in growth
Mhm.
and scaling. And those two things really need to be defined for this
Public.
audience because growth and scaling are the nature of business success, which then breeds everything else that we're talking about. Why can a rabbi say, I don't need any money? Why could a president say, I'm not taking any
I don't need a
of your,
salary from the
um, uh,
government.
I don't need a salary from the government.
I've got my
I don't
own
need any of
income.
this because I've already mastered this idea. Now we're talking about something different, and we could all potentially have
It's absolutely
arguments politically, but
yes,
that's the point.
but it's not the, let's just say the deficit that let's say I came from when I first came to you about my money management issues, my personal and professional money management issues. Mine was just a state of over giving and not taking enough for the company and for myself without setting
Mhm.
boundaries, safe boundaries. So as I'm learning, I'm realizing probably the most important thing here is that let's just say I didn't value it because there was an psychological annoyance about money, what it reminded me.
Mhm.
You understand there was
Yeah.
an inner conflict about it.
How
What
many how many how many people do you think feel that same way
I would say,
as a percentage
I would,
of
I'm
people
gonna,
that own
I'm
their
gonna,
own
I'm gonna
businesses?
make this shit up. Okay, I'm just gonna make this up. I'm going to make up a percentage now for the audience that I'm going to say 89% of all business
Right.
owners have something going on. Either they feel like they're a pretender, they're not really doing it, they're
Yeah.
faking it, or they're not aligned with their values and they need to make the money anyway, whether or not their values, there's something going on that's an inner conflict that creates psychological tension. I call that
It,
neurosis.
it's the it's the idea that you would say something like, "Oh, oh yeah, that isn't fair. You can have that for free,"
Yeah.
or, "Well, we'll just forget about that bill.
Yeah.
We're not going to send that
Now
person to the
sometimes
collection
if
agency."
you've got, let's say you've got a person, and I did this last week, and I think I did the right thing. And I think if I would have asked you in the moment, you would have said correct. A long-term client who I mean a lot to her, and she means a lot to me. We've gone through many things. She's had medical problems and physiological problems, gone through a lot, and asked about just quick phone calls. I say I only charge at 15 minutes as a quarter session, as if it were like a check-in. I only start charging at that. And the
Right.
subsequent, oh, do you have a few moments, exceeded that. And
Right. They
she
always do.
she didn't quite get that, but once I explained it,
Right.
I said that I've written the amount. I wrote 0.25 on the paper with today's date. I said, if this is
Hmm.
going to become a bone of contention between us and harm our relationship, I'm going to show you that I've torn it up. She said, I didn't
Yeah.
get it.
And
Now I get it.
so,
Now I have a
yeah.
still have a close relationship. I didn't sever and harm the relationship with the client. You get it?
Yeah, let's end our session on that as a
A moral
descriptor,
kind of
because
moral and ethical way of conducting business.
you can, yeah, you can chime in on all of this, but here's the facts, right? In most businesses, you have more than one human being doing both the work and also the um,
The
business
business part.
operation systems. Yes. And so, one of the pieces of advice that I might give, and one of the things that we'll have to parse with what the Torah says, is this idea that, um, I mean, how about this? The skill of a human being that provides the services must also be able to communicate the cost of the services without equivocation. Now, so here's the point. When I talk to a patient or a client or business
Associate.
relationship or
Mhm.
something. I'll say, I hear exactly what you're saying. I totally understand what you're looking for. The cost is $1,000, $100, $10,000, whatever it is. And I'll say, before we get started,
Do you understand?
let's make sure that we have an agreement on the cost.
So we have an agreement on every other appointment that was prior. This was just like sudden,
Something extra.
unscheduled, unscheduled. And you know what? I don't charge for
Sure.
5 minutes. I would not, especially a long-term
Yeah,
relationship.
and
I think there's a judgment call for
that's
each unique situation.
there is a judgment call. So tell me this, okay? Because this I think is something that's really important. And I think it could be hugely valuable. I want you to do two things if you can do it off the cuff. Number one, describe how the Torah would support what you're saying, and
Mhm.
describe how the Torah would say that you're doing it the wrong way. Because I think most business people have this exact issue, especially small businesses. And so I think that this would be one of the things that would be on our highlight reel. How do we make
I
sure
would
that
say,
we
okay, so
give
here's
of our time?
mhm. So the first, the
Go ahead.
first, the first response to your first thing is, what might make me think that I did the morally and ethically and ideal thing according to the Torah? Because according to Rabbi Akiva, one of the greatest scholars of the Talmud, he said, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, loving your neighbor as yourself, zeklal gadol b'Torah. This is the most important principle of the Torah. So I'm
Got it.
extending that my work life is all about Ahavat Yisrael, loving my neighbor. Every
Mm,
day, how do I feed that person in their way emotionally and socially and psychologically? And if in any way, any part of it, whether it's financial, I know these people have challenges with finances, so I don't want to create more
everybody.
distress.
Everybody does.
Okay,
Everybody does, right?
maybe, maybe.
I think most
If
people
you're
do.
saying it,
I think
if you're saying it, I
89%.
I guess 97%.
Everybody comes in. Let me say this. How many clients do you have that say, I have no interest in worrying about the billing at all. I don't care about what the cost of your services are. It's
2%,
okay.
2%,
And that's about what it is. So we're at
98%.
98. So
Yeah,
98% of the
yeah.
population
Can't
wants to know
afford this work. Eh,
what the cost of the bread at the supermarket is before they put it in their
Yes,
cart.
yes. And you know what? I have to tell you, until I became a little bit more rigorous with you, Ben, and the therapeutic work that I'm doing and the self work that I'm doing, I didn't think about what I threw in my cart. And because I keep kosher and I live in Buffalo and not a lot is available, I would be a hechsher, meaning the symbol, scrounger. Whenever I saw a good hechsher, a good kosher symbol, it didn't matter if it was
Yeah.
something that I need or want.
That's a different conversation. That's supply and demand, and we can have that conversation in a totally
So I've
different
I've I've
thing. Right?
I've
The supply was less, so you didn't
constrained
have a
myself because I understand that there's certain things that are beyond necessity. And I
right.
so getting back to the original question.
Also you're a professional person, but I don't want you to conflate those two things on this in
So the
this
first
discussion because
question,
I think we're
my
getting somewhere.
answer, let's just say intuitively, halachically, according to the Jewish law and the spirit of the law, I believe because of the premise of loving one's neighbor and not creating, there are many other mitzvahs about loving the neighbor, not creating
Mm,
pain. That's only one. If you know that there are 10 commandments that are generic, and 613 come from them. Think about 61 commandments per commandment as
I
a
understand.
tributaries that come
That's a
off of them.
that's a really smart thing that I've never thought of. 61
Now, they're not all
Jewish
exactly
laws.
like that. Let's just say,
No, but they
interestingly,
come out
and
of it inherently.
this might be an interesting way to end because half hours with people you love never end. Um, I believe
No,
I
they
read
don't.
in Rabbi Lapin's book, Daniel Lapin's book, that you should be getting any moment now, is that 70% of the oral tradition is about business and commerce and legal and moral and ethical transaction. It's not
Somebody's got to do it.
it's not 61 and 61. God doesn't need 61 commandments to say, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. He's got that. That's it. You should have no other
Yeah.
gods before me. That's it. You're done. Honor your father and
So
mother.
somebody's
Okay. So,
somebody's got to do the really hard work of digesting it. And
yeah,
guess what else happens? Um, the future.
yes,
The
that's
future
exactly.
occurs,
So that's what the book
and
is about.
we don't live without refrigeration
Yes, exactly.
anymore, and we don't
Exactly.
live without
So if
health
you're a
care.
business person, an entrepreneur, you need to believe in
Access,
tomorrow. You need to
right,
believe in that refrigerator, that freezer. You need to believe
right,
that your money's going to grow and you're going to have another aspect to your business that's going to elevate you in some way. So it's very
right. And
exciting stuff.
my reference was my reference to all of the laws of kashrut in that statement, because I imagine that God didn't want people to die before they had, refrigeration systems,
You might say that.
especially
You might say that, but
to
I do believe that the laws are still relevant, whether or not we've got
sure.
trichinosis in pork and refrigeration in frozen foods. And
There's still all kinds of appropriate ways to look at things, and fraud in business that causes people to get sick. And I think that the underlying themes, the way that we're doing this and the reason that we are, is to try to rationalize this for business minded human beings that also want to be religious people, that love their
or at
religion,
least
that
moral
love
and
Judaism,
ethical. They could be
and
Jews that are
moral
just
and
moral and
ethical.
ethical, or non-Jews. I would be happy if non-Jews would listen and be open
Sure,
to the
to learn
principles because
a little bit
Judeo-Christian
about Jewish history.
society, Western society, all religions believe in these basic premises.
They
All
really do.
they do, and they're not going to tell you about weights and measures, but they will say, "Don't cheat me. If you're giving me a pound of bologna,
Right.
don't give me a half a pound." And
Sure.
there,
What
those are the detailed laws about.
what we should what we should leave this on is this. If you're
You asked another
in
question.
yeah, well, if
The
you're in
detriment,
business,
the detriment
the
of
detriment of
my philosophy of
nah.
allowing the person to not pay that
Yeah,
brief appointment.
I think that what one of the big highlights was definitely how do we um uh, equate this concept of um being good to our neighbors, which we all know are the right thing to do. I mean, I know it's the right thing to do
You don't
without
need to
just
be
being a good
religious,
person. You don't
right?
need
You
to be
don't need to be
religious
religious to have
to
basic premise,
understand this.
societal
Yeah.
mores and
And
premises.
and how do we then create clarity? And I want to leave it like this, and then you can give your final thoughts. Um, when you start a relationship with anybody, you start it on a basis of, I want to like this person and I want them to like me too.
Mhm.
And the most difficult part of that is being honest with them about who you are, and about them trusting you, especially if you're the business. So, what you're trying to do as the provider of something that is for sale is to gain their trust. And the way that I like to think about it, I mean, in business, we call it authority. Okay. So are you an authority? Have you created enough authority? There's 5 things, and we can describe all of
It's
that in the
interesting in my
future.
field, it's almost the opposite. We don't want to have an authority on the person. We want the person to
Not an
develop
authority over them,
in
but
the
not, it's
business
the opposite
aspect,
in
in the
this. Yeah,
business
so not
aspect,
an authority over them. I'm telling you what to do.
in the
I'm just
business.
saying the authority is I'm seeking you out as an authority in this area. And
Mhm.
I'm not sure whether or not you are an authority yet.
And
So
so
I'm
there's a
going to
little
talk to
interview.
you.
There's a little brief interview. I always have an initial
That's how it works
interview.
with any business. Tell me about what you have in the
What do
shop
you
over
need? I
here.
want to make sure that my skill base suffices for
I
the
mean,
firm.
they'll say, we got a bunch of stuff. Go take a look at it. I don't know. I'm talking supermarket. Where's the beans? I don't know. Where's the
So
kosher
if the person is
meat? I
clear,
don't know. It's
if the
it's got
person
to be
is
in the back
clear
somewhere.
and they say something like, I've had relationship problems with my cousin and we've been friends forever. And now all of a
Right.
sudden things have gone really bad and I'd like to reconnect. Is that in your purview? I would be able to say, yes, we could
Yeah.
work. You'd have to,
Sure.
I'd want to make sure that it's in my skill
You'd say
set.
something. Yeah, exactly. You'd say something more like this:
If someone came to me and said, I
relationship
need brain
problems.
surgery, brain surgery,
Right.
could you help me?
Right. Okay. Yeah, I mean brain surgery. Brain surgery is exactly what we do. I'm so glad that you came to me. I'm so thankful and grateful that you gave me an opportunity to help you
I
because
heard you were
all
a
I do is brain
dentist.
surgery.
I heard you were a dentist and you had dental
But
clinic.
I wouldn't. So first of all, you have to have the patient coming to the right space, right?
Okay,
I mean,
that's
if you go
I,
to, if if you go to, if a patient walks in and says, "I need some brain surgery," and you are a supermarket, there's going to be a problem there where you're going to have to call somebody other than you, right? I mean, the
yes.
supermarket person
Well,
has to
there are
say,
those really
"Well, our
scary
core values
movies that people
are
come
making sure."
in for brain surgery and they're getting a lobotomy or they're getting something sold, a very intelligent
Well,
brain
then
sold
that's
to
the
the highest
conversation.
bidder.
If they listen, even if the lobotomist believes that they're truthful, right? And the lobotomist believes that they're doing, I know that
Doing the
we're going
right
in a
thing
very weird
morally and
direction. They're doing the
ethically.
right thing,
Yeah, just like
morally and ethically.
yeah. Well,
I
we
mean,
could
if
go
that's the
into
case,
another.
then the
Then
interview, the interview makes a lot of sense. So anyway, if you go down the
that's if
path,
you
what
don't
you're really
believe in a
saying, what I
due
wanted to
north.
say,
That's if
what,
you
what I
don't
really
believe in a
wanted
due
to
north.
what I really wanted to say was it's very important for the client to believe that they're in the right space. And the conversation is critically important. If you are as skilled as you say you are, then you describe your skills and you communicate properly with your patient. And what it boils down to is this is my fee structure. You can talk to me as long as you want, or I only do 1 hour things, or my time is incremented in 15. And every time you say something, I'll say yes, because I care about you, because I'm operating on this core values that relate to moral and ethical
If
standards
I'm
that we
unavailable,
believe are
obviously I
true.
set a limit, or if it's inconvenient, or if
Yeah.
it
Say
takes
I
away
have a
any.
hard stop at this time. But I can do it again. But every second, if I'm charging by the hour in one way or another, will be counted. And now let's start. Your first visit with me is included in a
So,
consult.
so,
Whatever you
so
want to say. And so it's unequivocal. It's
besides
unequivocal.
that theme,
Yeah.
I wanted to respond to what you said about relationship. I'm teaching a
Okay.
course at a university called Touro University. It really was founded by people who were uncomfortable going to mixed universities and being exposed to lifestyles that are not comfortable, Torah lifestyles. And I have a class that's Orthodox women. My cohort is always Orthodox women. Last semester, I taught ethics and values in social work. This semester, I'm teaching, it's called Advanced Clinical Practice. And the clinical practice is that first the half of the semester, I guess you call it a quadrester, I made that up. Half of the semester is only about the relationship. These next several weeks is only about developing the relationship with the client so that
Sure.
the client feels safe with you.
Well, let me give the business advice for you in this conversation. That safety is what you're describing as safety is trust, and so what they want to know is a number of levels of trust, right? I
Mhm.
trust three. I'm going to go with three because threes are easy. I trust that you know what you're talking about, and
Mhm.
so prove to me that you
That you're
are
licensed and
your
accredited.
authority in this area. Number two, I trust that you're going to keep my deepest, darkest secrets private. I
Confidential.
trust that you follow HIPAA guidelines, etc. And number three, I trust that I can afford this in my life. And I don't really see anything else that needs to be trustworthy except for what happens after that, which is how do I get started? And then there's a process by which that occurs.
And sometimes the
You first give me
bumpiness of
your,
scheduling and such like.
well, I want, yeah, ease of scheduling. Then we're in operations. We're in a segment of business that's operations.
Yeah.
And so the business operations is different than the delivery of services in some ways, right? We call it front office and back office. Who's
Yes.
going to handle all the stuff
I
that
have a
needs to get done
billing
so that
person. I
we
have
can do
a
this? Yeah,
I've a bookkeeper, I've got an accountant, I've got
yeah.
a graphic artist, I've got a social media person, I've got an engineer whom I rarely use anymore
Or
because I
somebody
used to now.
says, somebody says, I mean, just keep it real simple. Did they pay for the can of beans or did they not pay for the can of beans?
Yes.
Can they walk out of the
And how much do
store
they
or
owe? How much
can't they
is
walk out of the store?
how much is on their account?
Well, you got to keep it opposite. Was it not
Not
clear to
legal.
them? Yeah, there's no leaving the store without paying for your beans. When did you go and steal something ever? Stealing of services is a big deal.
That's one of the 10 Commandments.
Well, if we
Thou
have a
shalt not steal.
problem with theft in our businesses, then maybe we are not honoring the commandments on our end. Think about it in reverse.
It's
Um,
interesting. When I
we
worked in
can't
the
allow
nursing home,
people
I'm
to
gonna have to
steal
go
from
because
us.
we've got to go to an event. But
Go.
when I worked in the nursing home, there was this nurse's aide, an orderly, a male nurse, who would steal the Ensure. And you know how expensive that is. A six pack could be 15, $20, right? And
Sure.
he would steal it. He would just put six packs in a bag and go out to his car and dump it in there night by night by night. And I used to work sometimes at night and see it. And it was really, really uncomfortable not being a whistleblower. Somebody did it. He got
Mm.
busted. He got busted. But there was like rampant, blatant, visible stealing. And
Ooh, that's a good one. That's going to be our next topic. What does it
loss.
mean not to be a whistleblower? How
Oh,
does it, what does it mean when you see
well, you
something
know
that's
what?
unethical, right?
In the Torah, that is a principle. You're not allowed to call someone out to the authorities. You're allowed to bring them to internal
Yes.
friends, rabbis, a beis din, a judge, a house of
Do you
Jewish
know what we
jury.
call that in business? Management, oversight, and accountability. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, okay.
I love you. Have a
Thanks. I
great
love you
night.
too. Have a great night yourself. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Congratulations to the Bills. Mazel tov.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for Did the Prophets Make a Profit? If you liked what you heard, please share, like, and subscribe. Until next time, profit is not only what we make, but what we make of our lives.